Coming up on First Updates now, Paul Copioli is here to talk Sphero, of course, their new competition program, and, well, his journey through First, VEX, all the other robots program. Paul's a pretty amazing guy. We can't wait to hear more about what's going on for him. And by the way, if you're watching live, chance to play Paul in some First trivia for $30. All this and more coming up on The Fun Show.
Giving you a voice.
Making it loud our own way.
Welcome to the fun.
First Updates Now is able to create content thanks to viewers like you. Help Fun stay loud, live, and independent here on Twitch with a subscription for just a few bucks a month or with a free Prime Gaming credit when you link your Prime account. Fun Nation members get exclusive benefits including emotes, 5x chance and giveaways, and more. Sign up today to become a member of Fun Nation. Welcome to the Fun Show. I'm your host, Tyler Olds, and tonight, Paul Copioli, CEO of Sphero, a consumer robotics company. Of course, Paul is a mentor and drive coach on 3310 Black Hawk Robotics, past president of VEX Robotics, and old enough to be one of the people who actually trained me as an MC way back in 2006. Paul, I fished up this picture, by the way, of us from the Wisconsin region with Dan Green way back then. So we all had either more or different colored hair back then. So we can't wait to talk more with Paul, of course. Fun with trivia coming up, or Take from Fun trivia with $30 coming up. So Paul, welcome back to Fun, by the way. It's been a couple of years we were talking.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, who is that guy? Wasn't that the regional where I kicked, like I wasn't allowed to throw the ball, so I just kicked them into the stands?
Yeah, and without getting into too many details, we end up coming up with a nickname for Dan with a spider monkey based on the Milwaukee Zoo, if you remember, but lots of weird stuff. So yes, that was.
That was something. Yeah, that was I can't believe that was 14 years ago.
I know, man. So, of course, joining tonight, we have Christina Tia, co-host of the show from FRC 125, The Neutrons, and, of course, a member of Fun's leadership team. Christine, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back on. Feels like it's been forever since we had that teacher episode, and here we are in September, so good to see you. And if you're interested in playing trivia against Paul tonight, which who wouldn't be, message First Updates Now on Twitch or Tyler on Discord for a chance to play. And don't forget, if you have any questions for Paul that you would like read during the show, tag at First Updates Now in chat, and we'll get to as many as we can. So get your questions in early in chat if you didn't already submit them ahead of time.
So we're just going to hop right in, skip most of our headlines and go right into Let's Discuss That. All right, so Paul, so many aspects of competitive robotics, educational robotics in your past and history. We're going to dive a bit into this, what we're going through. Of course, we'll be talking Sphero a little bit later on. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, by the way. So, but, you know, so much cool stuff to go through with your career in just robotics, First, VEX, all these things out there. But, you know, I did a little digging on your LinkedIn profile, and I'm not sure how far back if they allow stuff from the 80s on LinkedIn, that sort of thing. But I did go all the way back to, it looked like you started out as an aerospace engineer at Lockheed Martin. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you got involved in engineering and competitive robotics? And let's start from there, and we'll kind of work our way through the journey of Paul.
I mean, that could make a whole show, but I'll try to keep it short. You're a smart aleck. I graduated high school in '89, so let's just put it that way.
I mean, a decent guess.
Yeah, it was a good guess. I went to the United States Air Force Academy for undergrad. So, like, the natural course for anyone who wants to be an engineer that goes to the Air Force Academy is you go into aerospace engineering. What happens is many people drop out, and then only us diehard nerd geeks stay. And so I stayed with it. Went immediately for my master's in aerospace at Michigan. And so they had Lockheed Martin recruited pretty heavily at Michigan. So there was a bunch of my fellow Michigan alums that were at Lockheed Martin. I had some time I had to do in the Air Force first. So I did that and worked alongside Lockheed Martin engineers. I worked at the wind tunnel in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. And so basically, like, when my service commitment came up, the Lockheed Martin guys looked at me and they're like, hey, want to do the same job but not wear a blue uniform? I'm like, sure, let's do that.
And you probably get paid a little bit more.
What's that?
You probably get paid a little bit more too.
Yeah, it's like double at the time, but you know, as a young, I was just glad to do cool stuff. I was working on the F-22 before it was ever the F-22. It was still an experimental plane. So that was super cool. And then, being a Midwest boy, I wanted to try out California. So Lockheed moved me to Sunnyvale to work on like a bunch of military spacecraft. So I actually kind of fell in love with spacecraft at that time. And that's where I learned, like, I guess I was the young guy, so everything was 2D CAD. So I was like taking 2D CAD and turning it into 3D CAD for the old timers at the time. And that's how I got, super involved with CAD packages and things like that. And then I didn't like the big company vibe, and I just wasn't in love with California, like the Sunnyvale, San Jose area. That was like in the late 90s, right? So that was when right before the first big ecom bubble, right? Before the ecom bubble, right? So everything was expensive from a young engineer's term. So I moved back to Michigan, and that changed everything. I went to work for a company called Fanuc Robotics. It's one of the largest companies people don't know about. I think they're over 1 billion now. At the time, we were like 300 million or something. We did industrial robots. I've got 30 patents from there, 20 patents from VEX, and then 30 patents from Fanuc. Yep, that's a LRM8. We didn't work on what we call the yellow robots. My development group worked on the painting robots, which were just all raw aluminum. One of my biggest patents that I still collect some small royalties for is called the P500. It's an external painting robot. But the big thing is I moved back to my hometown, basically. And so my high school physics teacher reached out to me. This was like right after the 2000 kickoffs happened. Yep, that's my baby. Every part on that robot I had a hand in designing.
Oh, awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's got the utility patent on that. It changed the world. It put a couple of companies out of business, actually, which I know I shouldn't be proud of, but I am. But it completely changed the way the outside of cars are painted. Now all outsides of cars are painted the way that we're doing them.
Like literally all cars made right now?
Pretty much everybody does it this way. Our competitors at the time came out with competing products, but they had to do it a different way because our patents locked them out of some things.
Those arms are just kind of creepy. To be honest, it looks like human arms moving.
The crazy thing about them is the outer arm, which is basically this part of the arm, like the forearm, where the applicator is. That arm is all plastic, like 100% plastic. Wow. Everything except the bearings, the seals, the gears, everything is plastic. It's super revolutionary for the time. That little opener you see that opens the door, that's a magnet in there. It's a custom built like pie-shaped magnet that is, because the sheet metal is really thin on the door. So in order to get the magnet to hold and release, it's not an electromagnet, so it actually uses brute force to think, and that entire thing is plastic as well. The only thing that's metal in that bad boy is the magnet and then the ball screw that's in that linear part of the actuator. So it saves the auto companies like millions of dollars a year in paint waste. By the way, I was
going to ask that because just like the way that it's coating it looks way more efficient than if you were to send it through any other way. So
I could go down a rabbit hole. I geek out about this. We did so many cool things on there, but it's basically electrostatic painting, right? So the cars are grounded, and then the paint molecules are charged at 90,000 volts. And so that's why robots have to do it, because, you don't want humans around 90,000 volts. It's a super cool technology. Well, anyway, that's why I got into like the patent gig and stuff like that. But that's when I started mentoring 217.
And what year did you start doing that?
2000. And I didn't know what to do. Like, I was closer in age to the kids than I were the parents, right? I was, I was young. And so
I know that feeling.
Yeah, I think all of us on screen understand that.
Hey, Christine, don't blink, because then pretty soon, before you know it, you're older than the parents, which is happening to me right now. Like, I'm older than some of the parents on the team. So in any case, so he reached out to me that first year. I didn't know what was going on, that kind of thing. And then 2001, they wanted me to be the lead engineering mentor, and then we just went away from there. And then it took me a few years to learn the program. 2004, was kind of our pivotal year of failure, I call it. It was the great failure before a pretty good run from 2005 through 2013. And so we figured out how to have fun, how to get the kids to be useful scientists and engineers, useful people, and then also had a few wins along the way.
So, Paul, I'm not sure if you remember, I was actually alliance partners with you that year at the Midwest Regional.
When we said, I don't think so.
That wasn't to us, but yes.
Yeah.
I was driving the 93 robot there, and I think your robot's in this one. It could be 107 was the other alliance right now. It is. So I think you guys had you guys had an arm problem, didn't you?
Yeah, dude, it was a horrible design, but that was the year.
Paul, I beat my high school team kicked your ass in semifinals. I think it was on that division at champs, and I think Brandon was your third alliance partner on Mort, and then you guys were paired with 190, who had like the sickest robot in 04, right?
Yeah, I think so. I blocked out 04.
Photo.
Other than that was our failure year to motivate the entire team to change the way we did things, and that was actually when we instituted the Paul veto. So like if there was a stupid design decision that I knew wouldn't work, I got one veto a year. And so I never actually had to use it though, which is crazy. But so that started the mentoring thing. That started me in using high school and college interns at FANUC. We started an internship program. We got Kettering full on involved. Yeah, 2005 was our total turnaround year.
So speaking of 2005, before you get too far ahead of yourself, so 05 was a really pivotal year also because you were the winner of the Woody Flowers Award that year. And obviously it seems like there's a lot that led up to that, which probably made it an incredibly memorable moment beyond just being the 05 Woody Flowers Award winner. Can you try to, in a very short amount of time, give us kind of how 05 was for you as a mentor, as a team, and like how that really, because leading up to this, I had no idea. So
yes,
I want to hear more.
A couple of highlights. Sorry, Christine. Number one, in the summer of, I don't know what it was, 04 or whatever. I forgot the timeline, but basically I was approached by Woody and Bob Mimlich from Innovation First and John V. Noon, who was an intern at Innovation First at the time, I believe, to be a part of the Kit Apart's drivetrain revamp. And so I designed the gearbox. I pulled a couple favors at FANUC and the documentation group at FANUC, did all the documentation for that gearbox. I remember that year. I always forget that that's the year I won Woody Flowers. Truth be told, honestly, I don't remember. Only when people remind me. But it's because we turned, like when we would show up to events, I don't know how many events you guys showed up to back then, but it was like circle bot madness. In 2004, you'd have robots show up that just drove in circles. The Kit Apart's drivetrain wasn't good enough for teams that didn't really know what they were doing. And so we spent a lot of time fixing circle bots. And so in 2005, that just instantly went away. The Kit Apart's drivetrain and chassis that IFI did, and the gearbox that I designed, myself and John V. Noon designed. That, by the way, Andy Mark was like one of their first years. They made all the gears and the shafts for that kit. That was the first year of that. So super proud of that. This was also the first year we collaborate. John V. Noon and I, he was a student at Clarkson. So us and 229 collaborated on everything but the drive bays, ironically. And so we built very similar robots. They were twins for sure. So that was a cool experience. I really enjoyed that. I thought that had its challenges to remote work together with somebody else. So that was pretty awesome. So, and then the team had our first taste of success, making it to Einstein. I thought we should have won that year, but we just had a little bit of bad luck at the end. But yeah, that was a memorable year for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, so it sounds like it.
I was going to say, in that year, you were semi-finalists, I think, that year. Is that correct?
Yeah, but we were we were the second best alliance in that. Like, if we replayed that semifinal 5 times, it would be 3-2 or.
The reminisce back on old first games, right? So.
Yeah, no, that was an interesting one because that was the last. I believe that was the last year before the Serpentine draft.
Oh, and the first year of 3-on-3.
So this was interesting because we were 8 or 7 or something like that. We were in a position that if the Serpentine existed, we probably would have declined. But because the Serpentine didn't exist, we didn't decline. And so since the inception of the Serpentine, I think at Champs we've declined twice from like 7 or 8 or something like that. I think once was 09. I think we did it again in 11. But yeah, the Serpentine is, it is what it is, but it motivates really good teams that are sitting at 6, 7, or 8 to decline if they feel like the number 1 or number 2 seed isn't really that great.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate.
Quick question that I have for you. So I know for me personally, watching 2017 win Champs, when was it? 2 years ago? That's like have no concept of time and beyond.
That was 2019.
2019, yeah. So the last full season that we had. I know for me, like seeing some of the mentors that I remember from like 98 when I first started, fangirling with my hometown team, like I saw familiar faces that have just been there forever. Like, so how was it for you being able to watch that? Since I know your team you guys weren't.
This is crazy. Yeah. Christine, that's a great question. This is crazy. I remember the moment because I was making fun of my old team, to be honest with you. But we were at VEX Worlds. We were at the closing volunteer party at VEX Worlds. There was like 40 of us huddled around either Karthik or someone else's phone watching the finals during like our volunteer closing party. And we went crazy because there were a couple of kids that were volunteering at VEX Worlds that were my former Thunder Chicken students, so they were going apeshit. The kid, I think Pat Fairbank, who was in the lead mentor of the team that we won Champs with first from Canada, like it was just like a whole bunch of like just nostalgic people, and I went more crazy for that Thunder Chicken win than I did for the ones that I was a part of. It was crazy. I wanted them to be like, I wanted them to get up there to get their 3rd championship win, because we were so close to getting 3 so many times. Like, so I was really happy for them. And Tony Moricini, the drive coach of 2017, I trained him before I left for, during the transition years when I was in Texas, but also mentoring the Thunder Chickens. His father came over from the San Marino, which is a country that's within the borders of Italy. My father immigrated from that country. Tony's father immigrated from that same country. They're part of the same club, like social club. And so I've known Tony and his kids since I was a kid. So it was great because his son happened to be on the team at the time. And so I got Tony involved, and Tony's still involved. His kids aren't on the team.
I was going to say, like, I remember seeing
Bob
him
Corson,
at,
the original. Ron Arsheen, who's the lead teacher, back in 19, because I think Ron retired now. He moved up to Northern Michigan. But in 2019, Ron, Bob Corson, and Bill Badkey, the original OG mentors of that team, were still mentors in 2019.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, pretty awesome team, like a pretty awesome culture that they've cultivated. When you leave a team like that and you're so high profile, you worry that like the team's going to lose its steam, but not with them, because like while I was like out in front, they were the core of that team. Like all those guys, like Ron was the glue that kept the team together. Bob and Bill, like they were always there. If it wasn't for them, and my brother was on the team for a long time as well, but he had left before I did. But those guys are the core of that team, and they had a couple of years where they had to recover, but after that, man, they've been finding ways to win.
There's something to be said about a team that can sustain themselves that long and then come back for their, Champs win in 2019 all over again. So cheers to all of you who have put in the time to make that team what it is today. But we're going to transition over to another topic, right?
Well,
Tyler?
yeah, I would like to get into, as we kind of keep going, is you mentioned VEX a couple times in there, and in 2010, you assumed the role of president of VEX, VEX Robotics, I should say in particular, right, which is one of the branches of IFI, if we break that down a little bit on there. So what led you to VEX? And can you talk about, like, when you first started? I mean, did you, I'm going to assume as somebody as the president, you kind of have this vision you set out for goals of how you want to start to transform what VEX is? Because really at that time, VEX was still just getting out of their infancy, really, for the robotics competitions and for the kits themselves, right?
Yeah, so look, Spite and vengeance are pretty powerful motivators. So I'll get back to that in a second.
All
But okay, so I was at the years all blend together. So I was at Fanic. We were the Thunder Chickens. We were mentoring. Where was it? The 1 year we were in Houston. What year was that? Is that 04?
2003.
3. So we were there were some field issues, like 100% field issues. And so Bob Mimlich, one of the owners of IFI, was on his Segway. He's like, it's not a field issue, it's your wiring. And my brother was on the team. And you guys, if anyone who knows my brother, like that's not a war you want to start with him. So at that time we had like a droppable, like our bottom Lexan dropped out so you could service all the Victors and whatever. And so we dropped, Bob's like, oh, it's definitely your wiring. So Mike dropped the bottom of our robot to show him. Mimlich looks at it and he goes, yeah, it's not your wiring. And so they took us and a couple other teams on the field. And after everything was done, after pits were closed, it was crazy. It was like bizarro world. And they figured out what was wrong. They found the problem and it was one of the field radio arrays was a problem, like on one of the fields. So after that, I got to know those guys, and I met Tony in 2000, the summer before the 2004 season. They were doing these small game design committees, and sure. I was on one of them. I was on one of them for the Midwest, and I met Tony after that. Like it was during 2003 or something like that. It was all 2003, and we started talking, and that was that. Like I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, whatever. Like I met these guys. They're cool dudes.
Sure.
And then John was working at IFI as an intern, so like he and I were tight, still are. And so we like IFI made all of our, like starting in 2006, IFI started making our sheet metal for the Thunder Chickens, and so John and I would just collaborate or whatever on designs, and not really like we did in 2005, but and so I guess in 2009, VEX was having their world championship in Dallas, and they asked me and Dan Green to come down and MC. I think it was just like one field or two fields maybe, and me, John B. Noon, Karthik, who worked for IFI at the time, and Dan Green were the MC announcer people. And so I got invited to Tony's afterwards, and my wife and I, my family, drove down to the championship. So I volunteered. That was that whole VEX is awesome thing. Like I was a volunteer at the time. Sure. When they exploited that pretty heavily. And Tony offered me a job. Never saw my resume, never saw anything. And he's like, hey, I want you to run our engineering group. We have it was all one company at the time. It was Innovation First. So VEX was just a brand. Hexbug was just a brand. Sure. Rack Solutions was just a brand. And so I got, on the way home, my wife and I talked about it. And I'm like, Fanic was getting to the point where, like, I don't know, I wasn't that happy anymore. It was more like me going up in the ranks and seeing how political a Japanese company is. So we made the move, and it was tough, man. Like, taking your hobby and making it your job, like that's a tough decision to make. So
yes, it is.
I did it. It turns out on day 2, I lit the place on fire with a laser cutter. So that was fun. Yeah, so I went down there to be in charge of a joint engineering group. So they wanted, like, Bob was managing, and he didn't want to do that anymore. So they wanted to, like, put all the engineers in one group, and then it would be like a job shop. Like, oh, do this for Hexbug, do this for X Solutions, do this for... Pretty quickly, it became apparent that Hexbug was going to be a pretty big success because of Nano. So Tony and Bob decided to split the companies into 3 different companies. So obviously they need people to run each individual unit. And I did not want to run VEX. Like I just wanted to run Rack Solutions. I didn't want my job and my hobby to merge. Well, Tony didn't listen to me. He's like, you're running VEX. So January 1, 2010, 4 months after I started at IFI, I am now the president of VEX. I have never run a business unit in my life. I've been an engineer, a manager of engineers in product development my entire life. And so, look, man, I learned a lot the hard way, but Tony also taught me a lot about contract negotiation and about things to look out for and about, not everything's about engineering, not everything's about the perfect product. So I learned, that's a long time ago. I heard, and so I fumbled my way through it, right? I had 7 employees. It was me and 7 employees that started with VEX, basically all engineers. Okay, and we just did the playbook of like, look, we're going to lean into hands-on learning, and we're going to listen to teachers, and we're going to do. These teachers were coming to us being like, look, I'm a science teacher, and my principal says I have to teach STEM. That's how far back this was. Like the engineering classes, like Project Lead the Way wasn't even it was barely a thing. It was a tiny little thing in upstate New York.
It was with what kits were they using prior to VEX kits? The Fisher Technics, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because I was actually in 2003. I was one of the first high school classes to use that stuff actually. So
yeah. So so in any case, we looked at improving upon, like there was a lot of like stuff that was left over from the Radio Shack relationship, right? And left over from, because remember, this is 2010, so it's not too far off from when VEX and first parted ways, right? Sure. So I wasn't involved in any of that. I came after the fact, but my job was to like make this company operational and successful, right? And so we got very fortunate that Hexbug, was able to like back us, and Rack Solutions was able to back us in our like fledgling years, right? We didn't need any outside money. We didn't need to bootstrap anything with like Tony or Bob's personal money, because Hexbug had a big hit with Nano at the time, and they got big orders from Target, and Rack Solutions is just a machine because they control everything in their ecosystem. And so we were very fortunate that I could do some things and spend some money to fix, add product, make new kits, make kits more, more useful in the classroom.
At this point, Paul, you didn't have kids, right? Like, or you hadn't started.
God, I moved down to Texas with kids. I had kids, and my first child, Giovanni, was born in 2000. Donovan was born in 2004. So Donovan is a junior in high school. He's at Heath, and Giovanni is a sophomore in college. No, junior in college. Yeah, junior and junior.
So do you feel like
I moved down with kids. Yeah.
Do you feel like it's been interesting to see how like a lot of the things that you've worked on between like VEX and now into Sphero and little bits in between, like it's all been really centric around like children and students and making like STEM and like building stuff approachable for anything. So it's really cool to see it all kind of come full circle, but knowing that you started off like aeronautics and like all this other really crazy stuff, but it's amazing.
I've dumbed down robots my entire life. Like I went from like robots in space to industrial badass robots to high school appropriate robots to middle school robots to elementary school to, and like pretty soon
preschool. You're at like pre-K now with the little bits.
Yeah.
I find it interesting because I asked if you had kids when you moved, because I wonder how much, aside from first obviously, like what influence just being a parent at that point in your life too had on kind of your approach to like your products, or
and how do you split that work-life balance too?
To be honest with you, it was mostly the kids I worked with through first, right? Like the Thunder Chickens ran like the largest non-state tournament, first Lego League tournament in Michigan. Like we were the largest qualifier to the state championship back in the day. And I noticed a problem. Like there was a huge disconnect between First Lego League and FRC, like massive disconnect. And it was my first inclination that the Mindstorms kit had some fatal flaws. And so remember when I said spite is an incredible motivator? My goal with VEX IQ was that my face and John V. Noon's face, and let's throw Art Dutra in there as well, that our faces were on like dartboards in Billund, where Lego's headquarters is, because we wanted to build a better system for younger kids than Mindstorms is. Mindstorms is groundbreaking, but it's got fatal flaws, in my opinion, for young learners that really are trying to be engineers or scientists. There's just certain things that are not natural when you have to build with the Mindstorms kit. So VEX IQ was born to we said we could do it better than Lego, really is what it came down to. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if you've ever seen any of my like speeches I do to teachers or whatever, I talk about the pyramid of learners, right? And so I always say FRC is the tip of the pyramid of learners. These are like, regardless of the outliers, the majority of the kids that attract to FRC are kids that were already going to go into science, and they were already pretty darn good at it. And so I thought that with VEX, we were focusing on the bottom of the pyramid. But I have learned that really VEX focuses, even with VEX IQ, on like the middle of the pyramid. They're kids with aptitude, but may not necessarily have been, it's not a slam dunk that they're going to go into science or technology, right? And so with Sphero and Little Bits, I found that there's this whole ecosystem of learners that have no idea this stuff exists. They're afraid of robots. They look at VEX IQ and they're like, whoa, that's way too complicated. If you would have asked me 5 years ago,
on paper, it's intimidating, right? If you don't know what any of this stuff is, that's a very intimidating thing.
It's not it's approachable for the average person. Like, and even a teacher, it can be overwhelming. But this, like, as somebody that knew Sphero before you very badass became the CEO of it, I was always just drawn to Sphero because it was familiar to, like, the children that I work with, elementary students, like the shape of it, the fact that they could see what was going on inside, it could be controlled with a phone. And then there was so much more that you could do with it. And to your point of like that kind of base level, that's not really like the middle ground. It's people like me, in my opinion, like when you say that I think of, because I went through this whole program knowing I was not going to make it into STEM. Because at the end of the day, no matter how like confident I felt to any degree with like tools and making things, like I didn't necessarily have any interest in the math part of it or the science part of it. So like the hands-on stuff that Sphero and Little Bits offers is a huge missing component in the education world, and even just like the exploratory kids kind of world. So
and by the way, we are going to get into Sphero in just a little bit, and I want to make sure we have enough time for that. I do want to grab a couple quick questions before we wrap up with VEX. I know the time always goes very quick with this. So two, one is you mentioned about FRC kind of being that pinnacle. Why did VEX, or why hasn't VEX created a program that is a lack of a better term, competitor to what FRC is, or a similar program to that?
Well, look, I can't speak for them now, but while I was in control, while I was the president of VEX, like Tony and I agreed, like we are problem solvers. We wanted to solve problems that weren't already solved. And we felt and feel that FRC solves that problem. That particular problem, sure. FRC solves well. We think that there's other flaws in other parts of the program, but as far as FRC is concerned, like there's not a whole like for the if you just like, and I know First doesn't look at it this way, but I do. All right. And so for the problem that I think FRC tries to solve, the tip of the pyramid, the getting the kids who are interested even better and useful. I mean, all my interns come from FRC because they're useful and they know what they're doing. And, especially ones that come from my program, because I teach them what I want them to know.
Yeah.
So we didn't think, like, we felt it was better to be a part of that program as opposed to compete with that program. And that's why the VEX Pro product line came out. We felt like we could solve a problem that, Andy Mark started solving, but didn't take it the whole way. Again, my opinion, no one else's. And so we said, we're going to make a product line that like is stuff that we want to get, so that the middle tier teams, matter of fact, I'll be honest with you, VEX Pro was aimed at the middle 80%, not the bottom 10 and not the top 10. Mm-hmm. Now, it turns out the top 10% use it for prototyping and things like that, which is great. But it was aimed at the middle tier because they had the will, but they didn't have the means to like create it from scratch. So we wanted to give them professional level engineer support. And if they had the money and the creativeness to create like mechanisms that they could just buy what they needed instead of having to make it themselves.
Sure.
And so,
and I was going to say, last question, I know lots to get through. We could probably do a whole show just on your tenure in VEX Robotics as well, too. But an interesting question came in from Asatalk that I want to grab. That's asked, how much did the Lego patent expiring in 2011 influence VEX IQ, or did it have any influence on that?
No influence, because we didn't violate their patent at all because of the way we were doing it. So like a pin and connector system is not, that part of the patent wasn't, like that wasn't the main part of their patent. The original Lego patent was more for their brick snap design. Now the Lego Technic did have a couple design patents around the way they made their pins, but the way we made our pins was different enough anyway. To be quite honest, I don't even know that it expired. We were busy, like 2011, we were busy just trying to make VEX EDR grow. I could tell you what happened with VEX IQ. We were running the freaking Thunder Chicken tournament, and I had to make fields out of that plywood and 2x4s, and I had to rent a stupid van to transport it. That was the end for me. I'm like, we're just going to make a system that doesn't require this. A teacher can put the field under their desk. And that's
Oh my gosh. That's how it should
It took until this
made
year
those
for Lego League for
stupid
that to happen,
plywood
by the way.
No, look, man,
Oh my
I personally supported, and our team supported First Lego League for the longest time. And then, like, it needed to be revolutionized. So VEX IQ, I feel still that VEX IQ revolutionized that kind of layer. But I can't stress this enough. Back then, I thought VEX IQ was going to be the bottom of the pyramid, and I was dead wrong.
Sure.
That's still like the middle. There is so many kids, and Christine, you probably know this. You know this more than me. There's so many kids that are still afraid of robots and robotics, and that's what I wish I could say I chose Sphero, but Sphero chose me, right? Like, it just happened to be.
It worked out really well, I think, because there should be another show on this, because I think that there's so many other contributors that could have a great conversation around this. But what Sphero solves is something that's approachable and quick, easy, intuitive for, like K-5 without 1,000 pieces that you have to like store. It's not even like the scary robots for me as a teacher, or if I like were a responsible adult for another small child, like the like pieces and parts that come with all those other like FLL and all that stuff. It's like, no, I can't. So Sphero, it's like, oh, component and like controller, good. Like, let's go.
Well, let's actually hop into that and get into Sphero in little bit too, Paul, if you don't mind. Looking at that, in 2018, you ended your time at VEX IFI, and you went to Little Bits, right? What led you to this next challenge for you in going into that?
That was an incredibly hard decision. When you are part of a thing that grew from no one knowing it to being, in our circle, a pretty darn household name, you build a lot of relationships, right, within the company, still to this day, and so, but for me, like, Tony and I just had heart-to-heart conversations. I wanted more. Like, I wanted to run an entire company, and it just wasn't going to be possible at IFI, right? Like, Tony is the CEO. He, he calls the shots. There are things I wanted to do that he didn't agree with.
Sure. Neither
one of us were right, or wrong. Like, it's just different methods. And so I had the opportunity, or at least so I thought, to do that at Little Bits. And I made the leap. I have a lot of experience because I make a lot of mistakes. And so one of those things was I underestimated the toll it would take on me and my family to fly back and forth to New York City 4 days a week.
Yeah.
I thought I could handle it because, like, I can travel. I've flown to China, but it's a different story when every Sunday night you're getting on a plane to New York City and every Thursday night you're getting on a plane back to Dallas. It takes its toll on you. It affects you in ways that, like, some people can handle it, but for me it was really tough. I was gonna stick it out. There was no, it was a thing. But look, Little Bits and Sphero are both venture-backed companies. This happens in the venture world. It was a good idea for Sphero and Little Bits to come together. Sphero was a much stronger and larger company than us at Little Bits, so the deal was done.
And honestly, it's interesting that you guys kind of joined forces in that way, but Sphero, at least from what I had seen on my end as an educator, there wasn't much, on their own, there wasn't much room for them to grow into much else without something totally different coming in. So I think the partnership of both of your products I'm excited to see what else comes of it. And I know that you guys just recently announced some pretty exciting stuff. We'll kind of skip over to that right now and then backtrack a little bit. Yeah. But I know the Global Challenge was announced.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what's really funny is we could have a whole episode on this. Like, I think there could be many of these episodes, but when Sphero acquired Little Bits, I actually wasn't gonna be part of the deal, which is normal. Like the president and COO, and there's a founder. Like, not everybody's coming over, right? This is how it works. I had decided that she was ready to like take a break, and to step away, and Little Bits was her life, right? And so turns out they're like, hey, we want you to come to Sphero. This is all in the matter of like 3 days. No, you're not coming over. Yes, we want you to be part of Sphero. And my original job when I came over to Sphero, so this is August of 2019, was the vice president of competitions. My only job was to start the competition at Sphero. And then 2 months later, I got moved to be in charge of all product development. And then 3 months after that, I was made president. And then 2 months after that, I was made CEO.
So what's the difference between a president and a CEO?
Okay. CEO, there's 3 different possibilities. The first one is CEO. If there's a CEO and there's presidents of, like at IFI, right? Tony was a CEO and there were 3 presidents of divisions. That's the normal course of action where the presidents are responsible for the day-to-day operation of the individual selling divisions. And then the CEO is in charge of strategy, making sure that the C-suite, like operations are running smooth and the financials are running smooth. At Sphero, it was more like a stepping stone moment where I was doing the execution. So everybody reported to me, and then I reported to the CEO. And in a venture-backed company, the CEO focuses a lot on fundraising and things like that in the growing years. So when it became apparent that we weren't going to fundraise and we were going to do some things, we actually spun out a company, a public safety company. So the CEO, who had been the CEO for 10 years, took a step back because he wanted to be the chairman of both of those companies.
Sure. And
so he recommended to the board that I become the CEO. And so because Sphero needs to be very operational now, right? We have to be operational. We're not going to be getting any more fundraising rounds. We're going to turn into a cash generating profit machine. And so I've done that once, so I guess I get to do it again. Right? So look, president is like a lot of sales and execution. CEO is a lot of strategy and board type relations and business development. When you only have a CEO, they just do both.
Sure.
And so Steve Jobs was that for a while. Google went through phases where they had a president, or Sergey was the CEO. It just depends on the personalities you have, right? For me, I'm operational, so it doesn't make sense to have me and a president. I just do both of them.
Paul, I wanted to grab a question that came in from Katie Wyden, actually, asking about, aside from the boring stuff, which she says is money. I don't think money's boring, but what are you looking for or evaluating when considering new career opportunities, or what makes you turn down? Have you turned down any other roles in the past?
Look, I've never looked for roles. I was gonna say, if Tony and I didn't have that conversation after VEX Rules in 2009, I'd probably still be at Fanic.
Sure.
Yeah, honest with you, because I love the work. So for me, it's not ever about the money. It's never been about the money. Never. Matter of fact, to go to Little Bits, I actually took less money to go to Little Bits than I made at IFI. IFI paid very well. IFI paid very well. When I moved to IFI, I said this is the last job I'm ever gonna have. Yeah, it's a great company to work for. It's just that I grew a lot under IFI and I wanted to do more. And so, that just happened. So for me, it's not about the money, it's about the mission. And so I got a taste of it at VEX that mentoring a robotics team, you can affect a small subset of kids. When you're in charge of a robotics company that makes the tools for all of these kids, you're affecting all of these kids. When you make competitions that these kids can participate in and grow in so many ways, and so for me, that's why the Sphero Global Challenge was a thing. Small history. When I went to Little Bits, Aya wanted me to do competitions. I said, okay, we're going to do Little Bits Invent for Good. Actually, Karthik helped me develop that game, Little Bits Invent for Good. It was done in May of 2019. And then we were going through the acquisition stuff, so we put it on the shelf. Fast forward, the Little Bits Invent for Good Challenge, Mission Earth, it's literally the thing that Karthik and I developed back in May of 2019. And then we added Bolt Mission Space, and then the Rover Little Bits Mars Challenge. And so the idea is we wanted to have an in-person championship, but we didn't want the volunteer overhead of in-person events. So which
are VEX, crazy if you don't know. So
well, VEX look at VEX. What we did, and the formula is really simple. You look at what people are doing. First did and does a lot of things amazingly well. There are some things that like we at VEX didn't like, and so when we made our competition, we mimicked the things we liked, and we got rid of the things we didn't. And so at Sphero Global Challenge, I always felt like at VEX we could have done more virtually, but the inertia was already there, like in-person events. So we decided, like, okay, we're going to make virtual submission events that these finalists could then qualify for an in-person world championship. So that's what it is. It's basically skills challenges. Now, Little Bits Invent for Good is more like First Lego League Junior, where they're solving a worldly problem, help your neighbor. But their submissions are based on different communication methods, either infographics or videos or whatever. And so our mission, our goal is like we're going to keep adding events, right? So right now it's just middle and elementary school divisions. 3 events, middle and elementary school. We're most likely going to add a 4th event next year, maybe 5, depending on the product suite and our bandwidth. And then we're going to expand the rover part of the missions to high school. But to me, I feel like between VEX, and First Tech Challenge and FRC, like the middle and high school kids are taken care of pretty good.
Well, then I got to ask, I mean, why is this competition in particular meant for grades 4 through 8?
Well, I mean, that's just where like the most of the people use the Bolt and Little Bits as grades 4 through 8 right now.
Okay.
But look, we're developing products for the younger kids. Those will be out in June. Oh man, my product development team's gonna kill me. June of next year.
This is going to press release out everywhere, Paul. So you better watch out, man.
We'll probably have a competition for the littles next year, a division for a division for the littles. I'm working on a virtual product, so that'll probably come out. There'll be a division for that, like a video game version. So we may or may not work on something for high school. I don't know. But right now it's just about focusing on the education market. Now, Christine, I can tell you that like their education business at Sphero didn't really start till 2014, and it was kind of like VEX got started. It was like this little thing on the side for Sphero, because Sphero was so focused on BB-8 and the Star Wars license and the like doing cool things with iPhones is really how the company started. So they've been slowly transitioning, and then in 2019, that slow transition turned into like ripping the Band-Aid off and going full in on education. So you're going to see a lot more things tailored towards education, like content and curriculum and competitions and things like that.
Yeah, they've had a lot of webinars that you can sign up for lately, which sounds like daunting, but I watched the recordings of them because I didn't get off of my own meetings from work for them in time, but they were really good, and they followed up with a lot of like resources and stuff. So as an educator, it's like a slam dunk because it's not another like typical thing. And like I could take parts of, either the challenges that you were talking about and tailor it to like use it on my own if I don't have the capacity to do, the actual thing. So it's good because there's not a lot like that out there that can be applicable for, a kindergartner who may not even be able to read or write their own name. And then, a 5th grader where you can tailor it to be way more complex. So
I'm laughing because my marketing people are slacking me, telling me that we should make you a Sphero hero. Because,
sold.
So maybe I will be following up with you later.
That's
awesome. If it gets me a free shirt, I'm down. I'll send you a ton if I get a Sphero shirt.
Hey, Paul, so I know we're running a little bit short on time. I do want to do a speed round for some audience questions that came in. A couple of them are going to be more serious, some are not. So we'll go through. Marshall from Team 900. Who is Paul's favorite Copioli and why is it Mike?
Actually, my favorite Copioli is my cousin Suzanne. She is my dad's brother's daughter. She is a twin, but she's a hairdresser, and she's been cutting my hair since she was in high school. And part of my decision to move to Texas, I had to seriously consider my haircut options because she was such a fantastic. And it shows because my hair is in horrible shape ever since she stopped being my hairdresser. So my favorite Copioli is not Mike. It's my cousin Suzanne. She is a badass.
Nice. Next one coming up, Katie White, once again, chiming in. Which FRC robot of yours is your favorite, and what is your favorite of all robots?
Ooh, man, there's a lot of history bias, but if I'll pick one Thunder Chicken one, which was 2005. I thought that was the best robot I've ever been a part of that didn't win a championship. Tied or a close second is the Blackhawk 2019 robot. That thing was wicked. But yeah, so, and then favorite robot of all time, come on. You can't have done FRC as long as me and not say the Beast from 2002.
There you go.
Yeah, Beast from 2002.
Love it.
It's still when you get several rules written because of your robot design, that's worthy.
I would agree with that. So, Tyler, you want me to surf the chat real quick for any questions we didn't scoop up?
Yeah, I know one just came in. I'll keep going. From Caltran, from Team 2410C, how many chuggas before a choo-choo?
Okay, listen, I think it's 4.
No, it's 8. It's 8, but that's all right. We'll move on.
It's chugga, choo-choo.
Yeah, whatever.
Come on.
I don't think most people have time for 8 at this point.
4. It's 4. Anyone who thinks it's not 4 is just wrong.
All right. Next coming in, Adam Hurd chiming in, says, what sports teams are you rooting for these days?
None of them. He knows the answer to this. He's baiting me.
Yeah, of course he is. All right. Marcus from 1836 was asking about how could you become an intern at Sphero, or any or I'll chime in additional things. Any words of wisdom for people who might want to come work for you someday?
Yeah, so at Sphero, we got to figure out how we're going to deal with how we're going back to the office first. So right now, we're not doing internships until we can figure, because the Boulder office is completely closed. So I've either got to implement interns at the warehouse or figure out a different way. So you can always send me your resume because I keep them on file. Always, paul.copioli@sphero.com. Or any other means by which you want to send it to me, go ahead. I do have a very long list of former interns that have already sent me their resumes. So, but I do plan to, have an intern army like IFI has a massive intern army in all divisions right now, which I want to incorporate at Sphero. I just got to figure out how to do it remotely.
Yeah, it's nice to have a willing and active workforce who wants to come work for you all the time, right? It's a good it's a good deal. So
yeah, I mean, it's part of the reason I still do FRC, to be honest with you.
So Dro 148 wants to know, who was your favorite ever hire at VEX and why was it me?
Yeah, it's definitely not Dylan Rao who was asking the question. In all seriousness, so there's two things. One, I didn't hire John. John actually got me hired, but John B. Noon, my favorite employee / business partner, because he was alongside me the entire time we grew VEX. But my favorite hire is Art Dutra. Art Dutra, he is the father of VEX IQ. That dude designed every single part on VEX IQ. He is a wizard. A wizard.
That whole family is a New England legend. The Dutras,
he's a wizard. He's a wizard.
His sister Tina is as equally, I would say,
no, we tried to hire her. She would not come work for us. Art, look, I loved every employee that we had at VEX, honestly. I've even hired at Sphero a former VEX employee. I did not take them from VEX, so they were already gone from VEX, and now they work at Sphero. But Art Dutra was by far, you want to talk about my favorite, but just the most influential hire that we've ever made, definitely Art.
All right, we got 2 more questions, and we're going to hop in the trivia. And Paul, do you still got about 5 more minutes for us?
Dude, I got time, man. It is only 8 o'clock here in the Central Time.
Same for me. Christine's teacher on the East Coast, so we'll mind her time. So so a couple more serious ones actually coming in. Richard from 3620 says, Paul, how do you balance being a senior leader with being a technical expert? Looking back to your career at this point, can you identify a tipping point after which you begin to see yourself primarily as a leader?
All right, so let's get back to the question. So, basically, when you're at the service academies, you get thrown into leadership positions that you just don't normally, you won't get till you're well into your 50s. So I guess the entire time I was doing my technical journey, I get always just kind of led things. Like I led the developments, even as an engineer. It just kind of came naturally to me. I think the tipping point at VEX, and it actually what led me to start thinking about like maybe there's some more out there for me, is got to the point where I wasn't as involved with the day-to-day of the developments. Like 1, 2, 3 and Go were definitely we were developing while I was there, but I wasn't in the day-to-day like I was for VEX IQ or for EDR or for VEX Pro. I mean, for Pete's sake, I was one of the engineers that made stuff on VEX Pro. But I started to realize that I didn't like that much. Like I wanted to do technical stuff. And so at Sphero, I dipped my hand in a little bit, but not as much as I'd like to. But because we only have one full-time mechanical engineer at Sphero, they kind of need my expertise in certain areas. So I dip in when I can. But yeah, that transition just kind of happens gradually, to answer the question directly. There's not like a switch that flips on. Like one day you look back and you're like, wow, I don't do as much technical stuff as I used to do. That kind of sucks.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of comes with the territory. I know like Brandon just started a new role at work and he enjoys being able to kind of do more oversight stuff, but there's definitely times where he's like, oh man, I just want to get back into like the technical nitty gritty. So, but it definitely takes the experience of doing all of that to be able to effectively let go of it, I feel like, because obviously the people that are doing that are well equipped enough.
Yeah, I gotta tell you though, being a mentor on FRC certainly scratches that itch, right? So if I wasn't a mentor for an FRC team, I think I would lose my mind, to be honest with you. Like I wouldn't do enough technical stuff.
Yeah. Well, Paul, thanks for going through all those. We're going to wrap up tonight's show with doing some trivia here, which we've related to apparently since my Yeti microphone doesn't know how to mute. I hope yours does, because mine apparently does not. But with that said, we're going to bring on Vishwa on here, who's going to be playing some trivia against you, Paul. So we're going to explain how this works. Vishwa, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Perfect. And what team are you from?
City?
What team are you from?
Oh, FRC 868.
All right, so 868 out of Indiana. That's the Tech Hounds, off the top of my head. So with that said, here's how trivia is going to work, Paul and Vishwa. I want to explain it both to you. So I'm going to put you on mute here, Vishwa, so you don't get any feedback. So the way that this works, we're going to ask you 5 questions on here. We're going to start with Vishwa. So Paul, I'm going to ask, if you don't mind, if you can just turn down your audio once we start, since you're not wearing headphones or mute or something like that, so you can't hear the questions. We'll give you a big wave once we're ready to bring you back, okay? So 5 questions. You need to go as quickly as possible because there's going to be timed in case there's a tiebreaker. So you answer the 5 questions. If you're not sure, you can pass. We'll come back to it. But if you give any other answer other than pass, we'll accept that as your answer. And if you pass a second time, we'll take that as your answer as well. So once again, 5 questions we'll go through. So Paul, we're going to ask that you mute yourself. And like I said, we'll give you a big wave once we're ready to bring you back on. All right?
Okay, I'm muted.
Perfect. All right, Vishwa. You heard it, 5 questions. So Christine, I'm going to ask, we'll do it over phone. If you can just grab the answers and put them into the doc for me,
Okay.
that Vishwa puts in, and then also time as well too. So with that said, Vishwa, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Your time begins in 3, 2, 1. In the mid-90s, the first championship was featured on what sports network?
ESPN.
In what year did the first VEX Challenge hold their inaugural season?
Could you repeat the question?
In what year did the first VEX Challenge hold their inaugural season? No typing, by the way.
1976.
Who is the recent winner of the Woody Flowers Award from 2019?
Pass.
What award was created in 2013 and originally presented to will.i.am and is given to the person who has contributed the most in increasing awareness of FIRST to the general public?
Pass.
Which FRC team has the most division wins in FIRST history?
Could you repeat the question?
Which FRC team has the most division wins in FIRST history?
it. I'm not even sure. 1630.
Who is the recent winner of the Woody Flowers Award from 2019?
Pass.
And what award was created in 2013 and originally presented to will.i.am and is given to the person who has contributed the most in increasing the awareness of FIRST to the general public?
Pass.
All right, time. All right, Vishnu, how did you feel you did?
Okay.
You felt like you did okay? All right, we'll bring Paul back on here and bring him back on for this and give 5 trivia. So we're going to put you on hold here, Vishwa. Don't go away. And Vishwa says he did okay, Paul, so we'll see how you do as well.
Oh, I'm going to do horrible. I'm the worst at trivia. Let's go.
Perfect. All right, so we'll see what happens with this. All right, Paul, your time begins in 3, 2, 1. In the mid-90s, the first championship was featured on what sports network?
ESPN.
In what
ESPN 2.
In what year did the first VEX Challenge hold their inaugural season?
That would be 2005.
Who is the recent winner of the Woody Flowers Award from 2019?
Alan Gregory the Fourth.
What award was created in 2013 and originally presented to will.i.am and is given to the person who has contributed the most in increasing awareness of FIRST to the general public?
Oh, crap. What is that award? I don't know. Pass.
Which FRC team has the most division wins in FIRST history?
I have a clarifying question. Championship division wins?
Yes. Includes subdivision too, we always call them division.
I believe the Thunder Chickens just overtook Citrus Circus, so Thunder Chickens.
What award was created in 2013 and originally presented to will.i.am and is given to the person who has contributed the most in increasing the awareness of FIRST to the general public?
Yeah, I should know this, but I don't.
All right, and time. All right, we're going to bring Vishwa back on here to go through these one by one, and we'll find out if Vishwa's coming away with $30 or if we're going to increase it up to $40 for our next show. Paul, how do you feel you did, by the way?
I don't know, man. I think I got some of the years off by one, but we'll see.
All right, well, let's go through these one by one. First question. The mid-90s, the first championship was featured on what sports network? Vishwa said ESPN. Paul said ESPN2. We'll accept any ESPN for that. So 1-1 going into the first question. Second question here. In what year did the first VEX Challenge hold their inaugural season? Vishwa, I think he said 1976. That might be off by a couple of years. So Paul said 2005. 2005 is correct. 2-1. For Paul. Who is the most recent winner of the Woody Flowers Award from 2019? Vishwa said pass and then passed again. And Paul came back and said Alan Gregory the Fourth. That is correct. 3-1 for Paul. Looking pretty good for Paul here so far. What award was created in 2013 and originally presented to will.i.am and is given to the person who has contributed the most in increasing the awareness of FIRST to the general public? Both of you said pass. It's actually the Make It Loud Award. Make It Loud Award. 3-1. And last question, which FRC team has the most division wins in FIRST history? Vishwa said 1620. Paul said 217. 217 is correct. 4-1. Paul takes it. Vishwa, sorry. You get the sad sound in the background, but thanks for playing anyways. Appreciate it, buddy. Take care. All right, so Paul, 4-1. Not too bad for you. That's one of our better ones against our audience here today. So nice job on the trivia there.
I feel like it was rigged. Like
we do have a rigged emote in chat, so it's
I feel like I feel like those were like softballs for me.
Wow.
Like if I don't know those, that's sad. If I'm a Woody Flowers Award winner, if I don't know who we selected in 2019, that's pretty bad.
Never know. So, all right. With that said, we're going to wrap up the show here today. Paul, thank you so much for coming on to talk about your entire journey. I'm very excited to hear about Sphero and the Sphero Global Challenge that's going on. Anything you want to leave us with before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, Sphero Global Challenge. We actually partnered with the REC Foundation. So the same place you register for VEX events, you can register for the Sphero Global Challenge.
Very cool. So go check that out on there. Christine, thanks so much for coming on. Love to have you on here. It can never have you on here enough. What's going on with you in your world?
Just, taking every day, one day at a time, being a elementary teacher in the, day of COVID world. So it's been good, but we're chugging along with the neutrons. We're meeting twice a week again, getting new mentors on board, getting new students on board next week to do FTC. We're going to be doing FTC kind of home-based. Students are going to build alliances amongst our kind of teams that we have amongst our own Greater Boston 4-H robotics program. So it's getting planned out now to roll out, and Brandon and Josh and our students and mentors have been putting a lot of work and thought into how to kind of get the students building and working with FTC from home, because Boston Public Schools are remote until I would say about October, November. Same with Revere, where most of our students are from. So this will be a great opportunity to get them doing something besides sitting in front of a computer. So that's kind of what's going on around here.
Yeah, well, best of luck with that. Of course, if you're into FTC, we have our FTC shows running every other week right now, including next Wednesday. So we're excited to have that as well. We I was just out in Reno last week for the FTC University Challenge. We have lots of videos up there if you're interested in FTC, learning a bit more about that. Of course, more FRC content coming as we get closer to the year. In 2 weeks from now, Paul, funny you mentioned it, we're actually going to have Dan Mans from RECF on in 2 weeks from now to speak more about some of their initiatives going on. So looking very much so forward to that. So thank you to everybody who's helped support the stream here today. It really helps Fun stay loud, live, and independent. Of course, we appreciate that support. Make sure you check out our Discord at discord.gg/First Updates Now. Follow Fun, of course, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter under First Updates Now, and also Fun FTC. And you can check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/First Updates Now, and podcasts where you get them. Thank you so much for joining us. With that said, we'll see you next time on Fun. Talk to you then. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you want more fun content, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Thanks to all of our co-executive producers on Patreon and Tier 2 Plus subscribers on Twitch, keeping fun loud, live, and independent.